For those of you who like the Ravenous or just yearning to get it, I have something for you both. In comparison to the Merciless, it has now, with the arrival of this build, been placed on the Ravenous's level. So for those of you who have the Ravenous already and enjoy it as much as I, you might need to take heed of this build I got for you. Also, for the ones who don't have the Ravenous yet and feel as though you really want it, well, I have news for you too. It's a lot more easy to attain than the Ravenous. And it is now debatable that it's even better than that weapon. If not that, at least on the same level in regards to viability in missions. Now, I personally have never been able to use the Merciless in the past in legendary missions. But as you can see from the gameplay, that this build actually makes it look easy. This weapon, the Merciless, has quickly risen in ranks to become something seriously to consider when playing any content. This build has more than just the Merciless though, and I'd like to detail that in a second. But before we do, I'd appreciate a like on the video if you're enjoying my content. Also, subscribe to the channel for builds from DPS all the way to skill. Now let's not waste any more time. Okay, I honestly did not know what kind of build I was going to drop today. In my latest discussion video, I went into detail about the evolution of skill builds and how they aren't like they used to be. I thought I'd be making an updated version of King, but this build has compelled me to show you. From the devastation Merciless brings, to the secondary weapon's precision handling, which converts it to a laser beam, to finally the build, which is surprisingly tanky with some piercing damage, making this build a certifiable beast. Let's first discuss the Merciless and why, after so long and such rare use of it, I made a build for it now. There are a lot of reasons for that fact. Merciless, if you didn't know, has undergone several changes. At first, the explosion it offered dealt actual explosive damage, which is personally what I prefer. They then changed this damage and next completely alters the way it works, along with the explosion's damage type. No longer explosive damage, but weapon damage instead. This never made any sense to me, because now you've made it compete with the Ravenous since its explosion is weapon damage also. Naturally, people would choose the Ravenous, right? It's raid exclusive, which means that it makes it feel special. The Merciless being an exotic you can get by simply target farming it if you don't have it already. But wait, don't take it for granted, because now you're lucky to have it. There's something about the Merciless that I just realized, and maybe you still don't know it, but check this out. By the way this weapon works is that it has a binary trigger which fires in both states. Each trigger state, when hitting the same target, gives the weapon stacks that, upon 7, grants an insane bonus. And here's where I never noticed this fact about it. If you read this, it says at the 7th stack, the next shot deals 500% amplified damage, then another trigger pull dealing 500% weapon damage. Did you notice the difference? First, amplified damage. Now this begs the question, what kind of amplified damage? Because they specified weapon damage for the next trigger pull. So I wanted to know if I added explosive damage to my build, then that damage would apply to the Merciless's bonus. When I added one piece of China Light to test it out, I couldn't really tell. Maybe y'all could chime in on this to help me figure it out, because if that amplified damage can possibly scale the explosive damage, then ladies and gentlemen, we have our OG Merciless back, but with a banger. But because when testing it I didn't figure it out, I decided to just go along with the build I originally had planned, which is off the chain, I must say. I'll come back to the secondary weapon because I spent too much time here already in this section. So look at the build, and let me tell you, at first it did not look like this. It used to be super squishy because it had glass cannon, so it wasn't really a viable solution for higher level content, especially solo legendary. And the secrets to success with DPS builds, mainly PvE, is weapon damage. I mean, the actual values of them. This is how you yield a tanky build that still makes it as if you're wearing glass cannon. Crazy, right? So for this setup, you want to add all the damage value brand pieces you can. So then you could increase your survivability by increasing your armor cores. This Hollow Man mask is what I started out with. 10% damage to health for the named bonus attribute. And it's Yaw gear, so the 2-piece bonus grants weapon damage, 5%. It's also natively an armor core, which is perfect. The talent for the backpack is vigilance, and you rarely get hit when using this build, so it just works out. Plus, when firing the Merciless, it's like a laser beam, literally. And that's another reason people don't use it, because of how unstable it is normally without any weapon handling. Almost unusable. Look at it this way. Imagine the handling being like the bighorn when zoomed in, but the fire rate being 100 times faster. I mean, how could you even use that, right? But this chest piece fixed that immediately. Perfectly braced is something amazing, for real. Its named attribute grants 50% weapon handling when firing while in cover. Did you know that weapon handling actually increases DPS significantly? Accuracy, stability, reload speed, etc. Any attribute related to the weapon's efficiency in relation to combat is upgraded by 50%. Speaking of weapon handling, here's a perfect time to go back and discuss the secondary weapon. Now, I really believe that New Reliable, this LMG that feels like an AR, is in the top 3 of LMGs right now. Its named talent also grants weapon handling 30%. And let me tell you, this weapon refuses to move at all when firing. It's literally a laser beam as well, and it hits extremely hard. With that in mind, you could roll headshot damage on this build if you want, but I decided to crit it out. It's a great secondary to use alongside the Merciless. And at first I had Sharpshooter as my specialization. I thought it was best, but no, you want to use Gunner. And that's mainly for the extra ammo that it offers. This comes in clutch because one weakness I'd say that the Merciless has is its willingness to run out of ammo so quickly. Gunner took care of that immediately. You're going to need it for legendary missions. So Petrov gives me the LMG damage I need for a New Reliable. I mean, the name chest piece is already Petrov. Also the Contractor's Gloves, which are amazing in this build. And the 2-piece brand for this isn't bad either. I mean, depending on what you're using. And since this is based around weapon handling, you get even more of it for the 2-piece. And I even tried using an Overlord chest piece for an extra bump in my rifle damage, right? I'd rather get the name version. It's more tanky and offers 5% more weapon handling than the regular braced talent. Honestly, I think the reason why I didn't use it is because I tried to craft an Overlord armament chest and it was literally garbage. And so I just slapped it on because it was Overlord. It wasn't an armor core, it didn't have enough crit, so it just it wasn't hitting hard enough for me, I guess. And I wasn't tanky enough as I was, so it just looked better with me being where I was. But I think that if you do find an Overlord chest piece that has the right attributes on it, it's a better fit for this, right? You don't want to waste attributes, you know? Now the synergy is awesome in this build, and you're about to see how. Because sitting in cover works to your advantage. I have the Sawyer's exotic knee pads, where standing still stacks amplified damage all the way to 30%, which you can maintain even if you move, so long as you stop moving in the allotted time. There's another weapon damage value that is added to this build. Along with the Sawyer's being an armor core, it increases your build survivability more. So you're sitting at 1.6 million armor, and that is insane due to the amount of damage you're dishing out. And you know what? The mini tanks are the hardest enemies to kill, I think, in legendary missions. And I'm rarely able to destroy them this effectively. It's just something about this Merciless itself, like the way that it fires and how fast you can deal damage. So if you combine that with everything else, it's a monster. The final weapon damage value here is the 1-piece Walker Harrison Company, 5%, and with all this weapon damage along with the Hollow Man's amplified health damage is how this excels in legendary against Chungas and mini tanks. Not to mention all the other ads getting shredded. The skills honestly are completely up in the air, whatever you want to use, because you're not even going to put down your Merciless or your New Reliable. For my skills, I went with the EMP Sticky Bomb and the Oxidizer. I just love using the EMP. It works really well for me. I know how to manipulate it so that it works best in my favor. And the Oxidizer is great for getting enemies out of cover, exposing them to my Merciless. Man, I love this game. Just in general, every time I think that, there's nothing more to do, there's always some idea I have that sparks the conversation to start up a whole new build for it, And this game has inspired me to become a YouTuber, actually. It's also encouraged me to expand my horizons and become a game developer. And The Division has influenced the game I've created. Identity Rebels, an open world RPG looter shooter with an amazing story and gameplay loop. I recently made my 7th devlog episode about enemy types, and it's available to watch on my second channel right now called Identity Games. Go subscribe to that channel to find out all about the game. I'd appreciate everyone's support, and just know that on the Identity Games channel you'll get a different vibe, which is also great during these times where the Division is in this state. Anyways, I'll see you over there, fam. Be right out.